Once upon a time, there lived the very handsome twin brothers named Jeffrey and Japhet. Jeffrey and Japhet were very intelligent and smart boys who lived with their parents, John and Ruth. John and Ruth were civil servants, while Jeffrey and Japhet were at the end of their secondary school. John and Ruth loved their sons so much. These twins were the apple of their eyes and their hope for the future. So they took care of their sons so much and gave them everything they wanted. They made sure that their sons had the best education. Their sons went to the best secondary school as they were getting ready to send their sons to the university after their secondary school. So these boys so loved, cherished, and respected their parents, for they never lacked anything. Few months later, Jeffrey and Japhet had finished their secondary school, so they wrote JAMB. And when the JAMB came out, they both passed their cutoff marks and they gained admission into the university. They were very excited that in few months they would enter the university. Their parents were also very happy, so they had started preparing their children for school. One evening, Jeffrey and Japhet were inside their room playing PS4 when they heard police vehicle siren coming into their compound. They also heard people crying and shouting as they followed the vehicle into the compound. So they came out of the house to know what was happening. And they saw two dead bodies at the back of the police vehicle. So they walked close to it and they discovered that the two dead bodies were their parents. It happened that evening, when they were driving back home from work, they had a very fatal accident and they both died on the spot. So the people who knew them in that junction had to bring home their bodies with the police vehicle. Immediately they saw their parents' corpse. Japhet, being the younger one, fainted. Then Jeffrey was still standing there, frozen, with tears dripping down his eyes. He couldn't even ask what happened, for he could see that his parents had just died in an accident. The people there woke Japhet up and they both began to cry profusely. People began to console them and to calm them down until their uncle, Mr. Anthony, came into the scene. Mr. Anthony, which is their father's brother, had heard what happened and he came to the house and was calming them down. So after that day, they were able to bury their parents with the help of their uncle, Mr. Anthony, and other family members. After the burial, Jeffrey and Japhet became more shattered. They were crying every day, for they had lost the only people they ever loved in this world, and that their dreams and their plans had scattered. But their uncle, Mr. Anthony, promised to continue with them from where their parents stopped. Jeffrey, being the older one, was very strong and holding on to himself, but Japhet, being the younger one, found it very hard to heal. So their uncle, Mr. Anthony, sent them to school. He began to provide for them and take care of them, just like their parents would do. He loved them like his own. Now, that month they entered school. Jeffrey made a friend in school who is named Paul. Paul was a Christian brother who loved God so much, and his major focus in the school environment is to win souls to God's kingdom. So brother Paul invited Jeffrey and Japhet to church. Japhet refused to go to church, but Jeffrey followed brother Paul to church, for they could not convince Japhet. So Jeffrey went to church and received salvation. He gave his life to Christ and became born again. He was baptized, he received the Holy Spirit, and began to speak in tongues. Jeffrey became a very committed Christian, for the love of Jesus Christ gave him so much strength to heal from the death of his parents. The church became his second home. He will always go with brother Paul for evangelism, soul winning, and prayer meetings. Now Jeffrey tried several times to convince his brother to come to church, but he refused. Brother Paul preached to Japhet several times so he could give his life to Christ, but still he refused. He said he doesn't believe that God exists. That if God existed, why did God allow his parents to die? Japhet refused to go to church, and he could not heal from the pains he feels as a result of the death of his parents. So Japhet began to drink and to smoke, for he took drinking and smoking as his strength. Then Japhet made a friend in a drinking spot. The guy's name is Stone. Stone was one of the baddest boy in the school who has not been able to graduate from the school because of his bad lifestyle and his bad grades. For he was never serious with his studies, always drinking and smoking. People feared Stone so much in that school. Jeffrey warned Japhet about Stone several times, that Stone is a bad influence on him and that Stone would lead him into trouble. But Japhet refused to listen to his brother. Japhet continued hanging out with Stone. They would go to drinking spots and also go to the club. Japhet considered all these things to be fun and enjoyment. So one day, Japhet went with Stone to a drinking spot. So they began to drink and smoke with other guys there with them who were also drinking and smoking. After some time of enjoying themselves and having fun, Japhet was already getting drunk, for he was new to these things. All of a sudden, the police came out from nowhere, and immediately everybody ran off, leaving Japhet there looking confused, and the police arrested him. His friend Stone had left him and ran away, so the police took him to the police station. Now, the news got to Jeffrey that his brother had been arrested, so Jeffrey and his friend, brother Paul, went to the police station. They got there and they met Japhet, and Japhet explained everything that happened to them. So they went to the police desk and began to make inquiry, trying to bail him. But the officers told them that this matter is bigger than they thought, because these boys were caught smoking what was illegal. So it was at this moment they realized that Japhet is in a big mess. Jeffrey and brother Paul began to beg the officers to see if they would release Japhet, but the police refused, saying that they cannot release him because this matter has procedures. Japhet tried to explain to them that he did not smoke what they were smoking, but the police did not listen to him because they caught Japhet in the scene of that event. So Jeffrey and brother Paul left Japhet there, and they began to pray and ask God for help concerning their brother. Every day, Jeffrey and his friend would go to the station to explain to the police and to beg them, but they refused. And Jeffrey and brother Paul would go back to the house and continue praying. After a few days of praying and going to the station every day, the police now released Japhet, and his brother took him home. Japhet became calm and began to recover from the police cell treatment. So after some days, Stone came again to their place and wanted to take Japhet out. And Jeffrey called Japhet to the corner and said, "Is this not the same friend who abandoned you when you were arrested? You still want to go out with him?" But Japhet never listened to his brother, for he enjoyed spending time and drinking with Stone. So Japhet left with Stone. Japhet and Stone continued their lifestyle, drinking and smoking every day. Jeffrey and brother Paul continued trying to convince Japhet to stop that lifestyle and to give his life to Christ. But Japhet never listened to them, but they never stopped praying for him. So one night, Stone came to the house to take Japhet out. But Japhet did not want to go out that night. Stone began to convince him that they are going to where the main thing is happening in town. Japhet told him that he's not feeling so well. That's why he doesn't want to go out. But still, Stone did not allow him stay. Stone said to him that where they are going will make him feel better. So he finally agreed to follow him, and they went. Now, as they were walking, they entered into a bush road, and Japhet stopped and said, "Where are we going? This is a bush path. There are no buildings here." Stone said to him, "Don't worry. Where we are going is not far from here. You will see, trust me." So they continued going. As they were going, they began to see a light coming from inside the bush. That light happens to be a flame of fire burning in a particular area. Then Japhet asked Stone, saying, "What is that? I see fire in that place." Stone answered and said, "That is the place. That is where we are going." So they kept going. When they got to the place, immediately Japhet stopped. He was standing there and looking as if he was frozen. He was shocked and afraid, for where they came is a place where a group of cult boys were having their meetings. It happens to be that Stone is a member of a very dangerous cult in school, who is even the number 2 man. And now Stone has brought Japhet to join their cult. So all the cult members greeted and welcomed Stone with respect. And then Stone introduced Japhet to them as their new addition. Japhet pulled Stone to the corner and started talking to him, saying, "Stone, what is the meaning of this? Why did you bring me here? I did not even know that you belonged to a cult. And now you've brought me here to join your cult without even telling me." Stone said to him, "Relax, my friend. There's no big deal here. Listen, let me tell you something. You see this thing I brought you to join? This will be the best thing that will happen to your life. This is where you will find joy and peace of mind. This thing will give you the strength you need to forget your past and your sorrows. And the most important thing is that it will make you very powerful. In this school, nobody will look for your trouble. People will respect and fear you in this school." Japhet answered and said, "Stone, I don't care about all these things you are saying. I never told you that I wanted to join a cult that will make me feel okay. Please, I'm not interested. I'm leaving here." Japhet wanted to walk away, but Stone stopped him and said, "You can't leave." Japhet said, "But why?" Then Stone said to him, saying, "You have already entered here, and you have seen their faces. If you leave, they will kill you." Immediately, Japhet became more scared. So after thinking for a while, he decided to join so they don't kill him. So Japhet was initiated and he joined the cult that night. They were all rejoicing, but Japhet was very angry and sad. After that night, Japhet was very scared because of what he had joined. He was just thinking about his life and how he ended up a cultist. But then he could not reverse it. So he continued going for their meetings and continued their activities. So the time for his major assignment came. He is to be sent among the people that will go for a robbery. And Japhet refused and didn't want to go with them, for he was very scared. But they threatened to kill him if he does not carry out his assignment. At this point, Japhet didn't have any choice, so he had to do it. So that night, Japhet and some members of his gang went on this assignment. They got there and began the robbery. All of a sudden, the police came out from nowhere and apprehended them. Some of them were able to escape, but Japhet was among the apprehended ones. Apparently, the owner of the house they went to rob is a close relative of the DPO and was able to call the police on time. So Japhet and the others were arrested and taken to the police station. The next day, his brother Jeffrey and brother Paul went to the police station, but they were not allowed to see Japhet. So they began to make inquiries, and the police told them that this is a very serious case and that their brother will not be released, for he was involved in a robbery and a gun was found with him. It was at this time they realized that the case is bigger than what they thought. So Jeffrey and brother Paul left the station, and this time they went straight to the church and they began to pray and intercede for Japhet that God should save him. Jeffrey was just crying and begging God, for this was his only brother. So every other day, Jeffrey would go to the station and they later allowed him to see his brother. But he was told that he should just forget about his brother, that he will see his brother when he returns from jail, because he will be taken to court and will be sent to prison. So Jeffrey went back home and continued praying. He would go with brother Paul to church every day and they would pray for hours. So a few days before they would take them to court, Jeffrey was in the house preparing to go and see his brother. Japhet walked into the house. Jeffrey saw his brother and was shocked and surprised. It was like a dream to him. So he asked Japhet and said, "What happened? How did you come out?" Japhet said to him, "The DPO just came to the station this morning and asked them to release me. That's why you see me here. So I'm free. Jeffrey was very excited that his brother is back. It happened that God has heard the prayer and the cry of Jeffrey and brother Paul and has compelled the DPO to release Japhet. So after that day, Japhet stopped moving with those boys. He stopped going out, but he continued drinking. His brother continued talking to him about giving his life to Christ, but yet he refused. For the death of his parents made him conclude that God does not exist. One morning, Jeffrey and Japhet were going to class. As they were walking, Japhet felt a very sharp pain on his body. Immediately, he stopped and bent down. His brother asked him what it was, but he said it was nothing, that it was just a little pain on his body. So they continued walking. As they were going, Japhet began to feel that pain again, and immediately he collapsed and fell down, and he was lifeless. His brother called for help, and they rushed him to the hospital. Jeffrey was very worried about his brother, but the doctor was able to revive him. And the doctor called Jeffrey to his office and told him that his brother has been diagnosed with lung cancer as a result of smoking and drinking, that Japhet has just few months to live. At this time, Japhet thought his life has come to the end. Jeffrey began to cry, for this is the only family he has in this world. So brother Paul continued talking to Japhet about God, that God can heal him, that he should just give his life to Christ. But still, Japhet refused and said that he would rather die than to submit to a God that could not save his parents' life. So Jeffrey and brother Paul continued praying to God concerning their brother Japhet, for they left him at the hospital. One night in the hospital, Japhet slept and dreamt. He was in the dream and he saw the devil pulling him with a rope on his neck and was pulling him into hellfire. In that dream, Japhet was so terrified, for he saw a very big and deep fire like volcano, and there were many people there crying, shouting and begging for help. Immediately, Japhet woke up from that dream and he was very terrified. His brother was there with him and he began to beg his brother, saying, "Please, I want to give my life to Christ now. Please, I don't want to go to hell. Please help me call brother Paul." At this time, Jeffrey was very excited because finally his brother would be saved. So that night, Japhet did not find any sleep, for he was very scared. The next morning, brother Paul came with their church pastor to the hospital. Then the pastor preached salvation to Japhet. Then he led Japhet to Christ, and after that, he prayed for Japhet to be healed. And immediately, all the pains on his body left him. He stood up from the bed and was well again. Everybody there was very happy, with Jeffrey being the happiest. So the hospital did another scan and test and realized that the lung cancer had disappeared. Now they realized that the kingdom of darkness wanted to just trap his soul. So they all happily went home, and Japhet became a very committed Christian. He stopped drinking and smoking. He became active in the work of God. He found true love, which is the love of Christ Jesus, and his life changed forever.